I'm Eleanor Grayson, 62 years old. And for 35 years my entire world was built around my children. People say a mother's love is endless. I used to believe that. Maybe I still do, but life has taught me a painful truth. Love should never require disappearing from your own life. Before I move forward, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your current time and your city in the comments. The house on Maple Ridge Drive. It wasn't just a house. It was every overtime shift I took as a dental hygienist, every vacation I canceled, every new dress I put back on the rack so something else, something for the children, could be afforded. 5 bedrooms, wide oak floors, a kitchen island where I rolled out birthday cakes at midnight after my late shifts. When their father died suddenly, right there in a grocery store parking lot, the deed became mine alone. And from that day on, every brick in that house beat in time with my own heart. My daughter Lily arrived first. Quiet, bright, always sketching in corners. 2 years later came Benjamin. Loud, bold, certain the world had been waiting for him. I raised them the same. Same schools. Same sacrifices. Same belief that if I gave enough, they'd never feel the icy emptiness I felt the day their father's heart simply stopped. And while I spent years giving everything, I kept one small secret from even myself, a tiny savings account. The future fund, I called it. Slow, steady, untouched for decades. I imagined it would be their safety net, never mine. Then last spring, life shifted. Mrs. Eleanor Whitford, an elderly patient whose teeth I cleaned twice a year for 23 years, passed away at 91. She had no family, no children, no one except the woman who always arrived early, stayed late, and listened to her stories about ballroom dances in the 1950s. In her will, read in a quiet office that smelled like leather and old coffee, she left me everything. $9.2 million. A downtown condo. A lake cottage. I sat there frozen, the paper shaking in my hands. She said you gave her back her dignity, the attorney told me softly. This is how she returns the gift. I didn't tell my children right away. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Fear, probably. So I held the secret close, and kept showing up every Sunday with lasagna and stories they barely listened to anymore. And that was my first mistake. Because silence doesn't protect you. It only delays the moment the truth explodes. And when it finally exploded, it wasn't my life that burned first. It was the people I loved most. Sundays used to be sacred. I would arrive at Maple Ridge with grocery bags and a heart full of hope. Lily, 33, lived abroad teaching art history, and called whenever her schedule allowed. Benjamin, 31, stayed close to home. Married to Eliana, raising my 2 granddaughters, Ava and Harper. The house I bought them as a wedding gift, the one I transferred into their names so they would never worry about rent, had become their castle. Eliana redecorated twice. Benjamin climbed the corporate ladder. They talked about private schools and European summers while I nodded proudly, still wearing the same winter coat I'd owned since they were small. Then, early October arrived with a soft chill and a long-awaited miracle. Lily flew in unannounced from Florence, suitcase stuffed with sketchbooks and Italian chocolate. I cried when I saw her at the airport. For years, for long years, since we had all been in the same room, I suggested a family dinner at Benjamin's. A proper celebration, I said. Benjamin hesitated. Mom, the dining table only seats 8 comfortably, and Eliana invited her parents. I told him love always finds room. The night came glowing and golden. I cooked for 2 days. Roast chicken with rosemary, garlic mashed potatoes, the green beans Lily loved as a child. I wrapped gifts. Hand-painted scarves for the girls, a leather journal for Benjamin, an antique fountain pen for Eliana. I arrived early to help set the table. Eliana greeted me with a quick hug, then immediately began rearranging chairs. We're a little tight on space, she said with that polished smile. The kind people wear when they don't mean it. Benjamin brought in a folding chair from the garage, but he tucked it at the corner, half hidden behind the credenza. Then Lily arrived, glowing pink-cheeked, arms wide. The girls screamed, "Aunt Lily!" and ran to her, and for a fleeting moment the house felt whole again. But moments like that, they rarely last. Eliana called us to dinner. Everyone moved toward the table. I reached for Lily's hand, guiding her to the seat beside me, the one I had saved. Benjamin cleared his throat. "Actually," he said, not quite looking at either of us, "there's no room at the table for Lily tonight. She can eat in the kitchen with the girls' art supplies. It's cozier there." The words hit like a cold wind. Lily's smile cracked, and the plate in my hand suddenly felt too heavy to hold. But that night, what broke wasn't just my heart. It was the illusion that family always makes space. I waited for Benjamin to laugh, to smirk, to say he was joking. But he didn't. Eliana kept lighting candles, pretending nothing had happened. Lily, soft-hearted as ever, whispered, "It's fine, I don't mind." But I heard the crack in her voice. A crack only a mother can recognize. Something in me snapped. Quietly, cleanly, like ice splitting on a winter lake. "Benjamin," I said softly, "repeat that." He rolled his eyes, the same teenage roll he used when he thought I was embarrassing him. "Mom, don't make a scene. We have 9 adults and the table seats 8. It's simple math." Simple math. I looked at the table. Eliana's parents settled comfortably in the best seats. Eliana at the head. Benjamin beside her. The girls in their booster seats. One empty chair. And my own pushed out slightly like an afterthought. I set the bowl of mashed potatoes down with careful, deliberate grace. "You're telling me," I said, "that in the house I bought at the table I paid for, there is no room for your sister?" Benjamin sighed, exasperated. "Mom, Lily lives in Italy. She's barely family anymore. She can sit this one out." Barely family. Lily's face drained of color. She stepped back. Once, twice, until the hallway swallowed her. The front door clicked shut a moment later. Eliana finally spoke. "Eleanor, you're overreacting. It's just dinner." I looked at my son, my boy. The toddler I carried on my hip while stirring soup with my free hand. The teenager whose broken heart I mended. The young man whose college debt I paid while living off oatmeal. I looked at him and saw a stranger wearing his face. "No," I said, my voice steady as stone. "It is never just dinner." I picked up my purse, walked out the same door Lily had taken, and didn't look back. The night air tasted like freedom and grief braided together. Lily stood on the sidewalk, crying silently. I wrapped my arms around her. That night, I booked us both into the lakeside cottage I had secretly inherited. We left before dawn. I turned off my phone. And for the first time in 35 years, it chose silence over explanation. But silence has a way of forcing truth into the light, especially when money enters the story. The cottage smelled of cedar and possibility. We opened every window, letting the cold October air sweep through the rooms like a reset button on our lives. Lily spent her mornings painting on the porch, brush tapping gently against canvas. I cooked soup, thick with carrots, herbs, and memories I wasn't ready to let go of. For 3 days, we didn't speak Benjamin's name. Silence was safer, softer. On the 4th day, the phone calls began. I let every one of them go to voicemail. Benjamin's voice came first, confused, then irritated, then sharp. "Mom, where are you? This is ridiculous. Call me back." Eliana's messages followed, dripping with a polished concern. "The girls miss you, Eleanor. Please don't make this difficult." I listened to them once, and then deleted every single one. On the 7th day, I drove into town. I walked into a quiet law office, found through a late-night search, and sat across from an attorney whose glasses reflected the weight of my past. I placed every document I had ever kept on his desk. The deed, the wedding gift transfer, the tuition receipts, the mortgage papers, the checks, the proof of a lifetime of sacrifice. I spread them out like a deck of cards. I was finally ready to play. I want to know exactly what is mine, I said, my voice steady, and exactly how to take it back. He read, and read, and read. When he finally looked up, there was something close to awe in his eyes. Mrs. Grayson, he said quietly, you have more leverage than most people ever dream of. I felt a smile tug at my lips for the first time in a week. Good, I replied. Then let's begin. Because when a mother stops asking for a seat at the table, she learns she can build her own, one they'll never forget. I started with the house on Maple Ridge Drive. Yes, the deed was in Benjamin and Eliana's names, but I had gifted it with a retained life estate. Quiet, boring legal language I never thought I'd need. Until the night my daughter was told she wasn't welcome at my table. A retained life estate meant I could live there anytime I chose. And more importantly, I could revoke the gift under certain conditions. One of those conditions? Ingratitude. The attorney didn't even blink. Telling a sister there's no room for her at the table, he said. In the home you provided. Any court in the country would call that ingratitude. I didn't file anything yet. I simply had the paperwork drafted. Precise, clean, ready. A loaded arrow waiting in its bow. Next, I reviewed the trust accounts I had created for the granddaughter's college funds. My name was the trustee. I controlled every cent. And with a single signature I could redirect it all. Then I looked at the car Eliana drove. The one registered in my name for insurance purposes. The emergency credit card they use freely. Still linked to my account. The small things they never noticed anymore. Because they assumed I would never stop giving. I made a list. A clear, unapologetic list. And I underlined each item twice. Lily watched me from across the kitchen table. Her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. Mom, she whispered. Are you sure you want to do this? I looked at my daughter. The one they pushed to eat in the kitchen. The one who walked alone into the night, because she wasn't considered family enough for a chair. And in that moment, the final tremor of doubt slipped out of my body. They decided who belonged at the table, I said quietly. Now I decide who belongs in the house. And when I finally delivered my decision, they discovered just how cold a mother's silence can feel. We stayed at the lake until the first frost silvered the windows. One morning, before the sun had fully risen, I walked down to the dock. The water was still, so still it held the sky like a perfect mirror. I thought of Mrs. Whitford, the woman who saw something in me worth $9 million trust. I whispered thank you into the cold air. And in the quiet that followed, I swear I felt her answer. My phone finally died. And when I charged it 2 days later, the screen exploded with notifications. 127 missed calls. And one text from Benjamin. Mom, the bank called about the mortgage insurance. They said something about a co-signer change. What is going on? I didn't reply. Instead, I packed a small bag and drove to the city. To the downtown condominium that was now mine. 23 floors above the river. All glass and light. And silence that didn't ask anything from me. I stood on the balcony watching the water snake through the city below. From this height, the world looked different. Smaller. Cleaner. Manageable. I invited Lily to stay with me as long as she wanted. She accepted. Tears shining in her eyes. For the first time in years, my daughter and I shared a home without tension. Without Eliana's tight smile. Without Benjamin's careful disapproval. We bought groceries together. Painted the second bedroom a soft sage green. Cooked pasta barefoot in the kitchen. Laughed until our sides hurt. We were healing. Not slowly, but in real time. And every night, before I lay down to sleep, I opened the folder the attorney had given me. Inside were the revocation papers for the house. the trust amendments, the repossession forms, my leverage, my boundaries, my voice. I read them like bedtime stories. Soon. Because sometimes the calm before the storm belongs to the person who finally learned how to hold the lightning. Thanksgiving was approaching. Eliana sent an email, because apparently phone calls were now beneath them, inviting me to dinner, hoping to smooth things over. The message was filled with soft, diplomatic words. Misunderstanding. Family first. Let's move on. But there was no apology. And of course, no mention of Lily. I printed the email, folded it neatly, and tucked it into the folder with all the other truths they had handed me. Lily asked if I planned to go. I told her no. Then I asked if she wanted to spend Thanksgiving right here, in the condominium, just the two of us, and anyone we chose to welcome. Her smile was answer enough. We planned our own feast. Roast duck, wild rice, her favorite cranberry sauce. We invited 2 of her old professors visiting from Italy. We set the table for 6, with room for 8 if more arrived. Every seat had a handwritten name card in gold ink. Every place was intentional. On Thanksgiving morning, I signed the first set of documents. The revocation of the house gift. The attorney filed it electronically at 9:03 a.m. By noon, Benjamin would receive notice that the house he lived in was no longer legally his. Until further court review, I turned off my phone again and slid the duck into the oven. The scent filled the condominium, warm, rich, full of promise. At 6 p.m., our guests arrived. At 6:15, we sat around a table where every person was wanted. Every story was heard. Every laugh was real. Halfway through dessert, I lifted my glass. To the people who choose to make room, I said. Lily clinked her glass against mine, her eyes shining. And to the women who finally take up the space they deserve. But while we toasted to freedom, someone else was preparing to storm the gates of the life they had once taken for granted. The fallout began the next morning. Benjamin called 17 times before 9. When I finally answered, his voice was raw, frayed at the edges. Mom, there are papers saying the house isn't ours anymore. The bank froze our accounts. What have you done? I was drinking coffee on the balcony, watching the river catch the first winter sun. I made room, I said calmly. You taught me how. He shouted. He pleaded. He threatened lawyers, judges, consequences. I listened quietly until he ran out of breath. Then I said, You told your sister there was no seat for her at the table. I simply made sure there was no table at all. Silence. Then a whisper so thin it almost broke. You can't do this. I already did. And I hung up. An hour later, Eliana called from a number I didn't recognize. Her voice was a waterfall of panic. She cried. She begged. She promised they would apologize to Lily, that they would make it right. I let her spill every frantic word. Then I said gently, Eliana, you mistook my kindness for weakness. That was your mistake, not mine. I ended the call, blocked the number, and let the quiet settle like snow. Lily stood in the doorway, studying me with cautious eyes. Are you okay? She asked. I smiled, really smiled. And for the first time in years, it reached every corner of me. I have never, I said, been better. But the final chapter wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming everything I had forgotten about myself. Winter had settled in earnest. The court granted a temporary order returning legal possession of Maple Ridge Drive to me, pending the full hearing. I did not move back in. Instead, I hired a management company to change the locks and inventory everything. Benjamin and Eliana were given 30 days to vacate. The attorney assured me they had no legal ground to fight. The gift revocation was ironclad. They tried anyway. A lawyer sent letters, sharp, threatening, loud with indignation. The judge denied their emergency motion in less than 10 minutes. One December afternoon, Lily and I drove past the house, curiosity not cruelty. A moving truck sat in the driveway. Eliana stood on the porch directing movers with tight lips. Benjamin loaded boxes into the car, face drawn and tired. The girls watched from the steps, clutching stuffed animals. Lily reached for my hand. I squeezed it once, and we kept driving. That night, in the warm glow of the condominium, we decorated our tree. Lily brought ornaments from Italy, hand-blown glass stars that caught the light like hope. In the center we hung a new one, a tiny wooden table with 8 empty chairs. On the bottom, Lily had painted in delicate script, "Room for everyone who chooses love." We stepped back and looked at it glowing in the light. Neither of us cried. We had run out of tears for people who never earned them. And as the city slept outside, we realized some victories don't roar. They glow quietly, in the spaces we finally claim for ourselves. Spring arrived soft and green. The final hearing came and went. The judge ruled the gift revocation permanent. The house belonged to me, alone once more. I listed it for sale that very day. Offers poured in. Young families wandered through the rooms where my children once ran barefoot, laughing, arguing, dreaming, unaware of the history etched into the walls. I accepted the highest bid. A couple expecting their first child. They closed in May. With the proceeds, I created the Lily Grayson Art Scholarship for students who, like my daughter, were told their dreams were too quiet to matter. The first recipient was a girl from a rural county, whose landscapes made Lily weep when she saw them. Benjamin tried one last time. He showed up at the condominium unannounced, thinner, eyes red. Security escorted him out before he could reach the elevator. Eliana filed for separation shortly after. The girls began weekend visits with Lily and me in the new lakeside cottage we bought together. They called us both Grandma now, and their laughter filled rooms that had never known anything but welcome. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money, or a house or control. It's reclaiming the life you thought you lost, and creating space for love that lasts. Years have passed since that Thanksgiving. The day a table became a battlefield. Lily and I travel often now: Morocco, Portugal, Japan. We paint. We teach workshops. We mentor young women who were told to make themselves smaller, to whisper when they could have sung. The downtown condominium sold for double what I paid. The lake cottage became our home, its walls covered in Lily's canvases and photographs of the places we have loved. Sometimes people ask me if I regret having children, if the pain was worth it. I tell them I regret only one thing, that I waited so long to choose myself. Benjamin lives in a small apartment across town. I hear updates only through the girls. He has a job he doesn't love, and a silence he cannot fill. I send birthday cards to my granddaughters, and nothing more. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. I never hear from Eliana again. That chapter ends where it began, at a table that taught me the difference between giving and giving away. Some lessons cost decades to learn, but the ones that teach you to reclaim yourself are worth every moment. Last month, the scholarship fund reached $10 million. We held the celebration at the lake. 30 young artists, all women who once believed their voices were too soft, filled the house with music, laughter, and color. At the head of the long farmhouse table, seats for 40, always room for more. I raised a glass of sparkling cider. To the girls who were told to move to the kitchen, I said, "Look where we sit now." They cheered. Lily painted the moment live on a huge canvas that now hangs in the dining room. 40 women laughing, reaching, belonging. There is no empty chair in that painting, and there never will be again. Some tables teach us pain, but the ones we build ourselves teach us power, love, and the joy of claiming every seat we deserve. Some nights, I walk the dock alone. The water is black and endless, scattered with reflected stars. I think of Mrs. Whitford, who saw worth where others saw only service. I think of the boy Benjamin once was, chasing fireflies in the backyard I no longer own. I do not hate him. Hate would mean he still takes up space inside me. He does not. I have learned that forgiveness is not reunion. Forgiveness is release. I released him the day I chose my daughter, my peace, myself. The wind moves across the lake, carrying the scent of pine and freedom. I breathe it in and feel the years settle gently, like snow that does not sting. Some stories don't end with vengeance or revenge. They end with claiming the life that was always yours. The girls are teenagers now. Ava wants to study architecture. Harper dreams of opening a bakery. They spend their summers with us, painting alongside Lily, learning from me how to make pie crust flaky, how to make life deliberate. Sometimes they ask about their father. I answer honestly, but briefly. He made choices, I say. We all live with them. They nod. They understand more than people give teenagers credit for. And sometimes, understanding is the quietest form of inheritance we leave behind. This morning, I received a letter forwarded from the old address. Benjamin's handwriting, shaky, uneven, spilled across the page. Inside a single sentence. I was wrong. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. I read it twice, folded it carefully, and placed it in the fire. The flames took the words the way water takes salt. Some apologies arrive too late to matter. Some lessons are only learned in the losing. And sometimes, the most powerful victories are silent, burned quietly into memory, leaving only the freedom to move forward. Lily is getting married next spring, to a sculptor from Lisbon. The wedding will be here at the lake, under the wisteria arbor we planted the very first year. There will be long tables, mismatched chairs, and room for every person either of us has ever loved. I ordered a new sign for the gate. Grayson House. All who are kind are home. Some tables teach pain, but the ones we build ourselves teach love, belonging, and the joy of never taking up less than we deserve. People still ask if I am lonely. I laugh. I show them the guest book filled with names from every continent. The studio overflowing with canvases. The kitchen where someone is always making coffee or soup or memories. Loneliness cannot live here. Not where love has learned to take up space. Some stories end quietly, not with revenge or regret, but with the life you finally claim, and the room you make for everyone who truly belongs. Tonight, the moon is full and low over the water. I sit on the porch swing, wrapped in a quilt my mother made before she passed. The fabric is thin now, but it still holds warmth. I think of every table I have ever set, every chair I have pulled out for someone else, while standing hungry in the doorway. Never again. Some stories end not with fury, but with quiet resolution. A life lived fully, with space carved for yourself and those who truly belong. Tomorrow, I turn 70. Lily insists on a party. She has invited 50 people. Our chosen family, the ones who have filled our lives with laughter, love, and light. There will be cake, dancing, and a new tradition. Every guest must bring a chair, any chair, to add to the long table we keep extending across the lawn. By the end of the night, we will have more chairs than we know what to do with. And that is exactly the point. Some tables teach us sorrow, but the ones we build ourselves teach joy, abundance, and the courage to take up every seat we deserve. So here is the truth I earned the hard way. A mother's job is not to disappear so her children can shine. A mother's job is to teach them that love leaves room, that gratitude is a language, that family is a circle drawn wide enough for every heart willing to honor it. I lost a son the day he said there was no room at the table for his sister. I found myself the day I made sure there was no house left for those who believe love can be measured in square footage and silence. Now my table is long. My door is open. Every seat is taken by someone who knows the difference between being given a place and earning one. There is always room here. I made sure of it. Some lessons cost a lifetime, but the ones that teach us to claim our space are priceless.